Hey y'all, what's up? It's your boy Colin here. Hey, anybody up for a new adventure to a new museum? They're just opening up the National Lynching Museum down in Montgomery, Alabama. And this museum is dedicated to the proposition that black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time, everywhere. That explains everything, especially 100 years ago when white people were roaming the country, lynching black people for no reason whatsoever. So they give you lots of photographs, lots of documentary evidence, lots of records, and lots of stories. But one story they don't tell us is, okay, so we know those people were lynched. But were they lynched for no reason whatsoever? So is this a process argument or a justice argument? Was black on white crime and hostility and violence and murder as wildly out of proportion then as it is today? Well, they'll never answer that question. They'll never ask that question. We're going to meet the people who run this museum in a minute. But before we do that, why don't we look at some of the videos we've done this week? Why don't we look at some of the black on white murder of the most horrific kind you can imagine that were in the news this week? Maybe someday we'll have a memorial to them. I guess we could start off with these guys. Young white couple, not doing nothing, had a little trailer, a little nice little life. Down in the South, 5 black people broke in and killed them.
Our top story tonight at 6. 5 teenagers have been arrested and charged in connection with the double homicide in Dodge County yesterday. Officers arrested 19-year-old Kojak Thomas Jr., 17-year-old Gary Pinneman, and 2 16-year-olds for murder.
This was in the news. This was in the news kind of recently as well. A fellow down in Washington, D.C. was walking around. He ran into an Asian woman, and he believed that the Asian woman dropped the N-bomb on him. This was an Asian woman that didn't even speak English that well. You know, we've seen this before. I can think of a video we saw out of Korea once, where a black person's on a bus and Asian people are sitting there talking to each other in a way that most people who don't speak Korean would not understand. The black people on the bus were convinced the Asian people were all talking about him, calling him names, so he went and wailed on them, just like this guy did. So he made up this fairy tale. He killed this Asian woman, made up a fairy tale. It was all about her, forcing him to kill her because she dropped an N-bomb on him. Nice try, fool. Let's head down to this story.
Today, the 2 men accused of killing a mother and son in Isle of Wight County had preliminary hearings. 29-year-old Kareem Mitchell and 19-year-old Richard Holmes are both charged with first-degree murder and other charges relating to the brutal murders last September 23rd. Andy Fox was in court today. He joins us now live with the latest. Andy?
Back in September, it was clear Kareem Mitchell had admitted to the killings.
I see a tear in your eye.
There's a few tears in my eyes, Andy. I regret this for the rest of my life.
Today, Mitchell waived his preliminary hearing because he's pleading guilty to first-degree murder.
Renewed hopes for justice as investigators get closer to solving a 9-year-old murder. 23-year-old Andrew Graham was shot to death in his neighborhood in Centennial as he walked home from the light rail. No one was ever arrested or charged until now. CBS 4 investigator Brian Moss breaking the story live tonight from the light rail stop at I-25 and County Line Road. Brian?
And Jim, as you probably remember, Andrew Graham was walking home from this light rail station in 2009 when he was murdered. We've gotten word tonight that a grand jury actually indicted 4 people in this case, and they were arrested nearly a year and a half ago. But with a gag order in place and the case legally sealed, word never got out about this major break until now. Jailed in connection with Graham's murder are Clarissa Lockhart, Alan Ford, Kendall Austin, and Joseph Martin. They were charged with felony murder, along with conspiracy and racketeering charges for the 2009 death of Andrew Graham.
It won't bring my son back, but maybe there'll be a measure of justice for him.
Graham's mother has always believed her son's killer or killers would be brought to justice, and to her these indictments are a step in that direction.
I'm glad that they will be held accountable at least in some small measure, for what they've done.
According to court documents obtained by CBS 4, an Arapahoe County grand jury indicted these four for the Graham murder in January of 2017. They were arrested within days and have been in jail ever since, charged with being connected to the homicide. But it was a closely held secret. Was it hard not to tell anybody for a year?
No, because I understood the plan.
These same documents say a fifth person, the actual gunman, identified as Terrell Jones, has not yet been arrested or charged. Police always suspected these five of being involved in Graham's death, but there was never enough evidence to make any arrests. In fact, in 2011, the previous DA in Arapahoe County convened a grand jury, but they concluded there was not enough evidence to file charges. However, a new DA meant a new grand jury, and this time, a different result.
Right now, Kansas City police continue to search for the man who killed a utility worker at his job site.
Jonathan Porter died at the hospital yesterday after someone shot him. 41 Action News reporter Charlie Keegan has more on this investigation. He's been following it since the beginning yesterday. Charlie, what can you tell us today?
Well, this morning, Taylor, the detectives working the case here from the police headquarters have a lead, but they need your help. They hope someone out there can identify this person of interest that they caught on camera. We want to show you the surveillance pictures that the police have shared with us.
Detroit's Foreman Street desolate Wednesday, but thoughts of the horrific scene out here just days ago haunts all who knew and loved 28-year-old Angela Nielsen.
She's a mother, she's a daughter, you know what I'm saying? She's a sister. You know, she's a grandkid, you know what I'm saying? It's just not, that's torture, you know, that's something you just don't do to a human.
The young mother found dead, her body stuffed inside the trunk of a burning car last week.
What could she have done to somebody or for them to do that? Honestly, like, what could she have done?
Firefighters and police discovering her body so badly burned, dental records used to identify her. Her cause of death still unknown.
She had no smoke in her throat. So therefore, she was probably dead before they put her in there.
The father of two of her children, 7-year-old Mariah and 4-year-old Nevaeh. Dwayne Gabbard says for the last year and a half, Nielsen's addiction to pills, then heroin, was taking over her life.
I kind of prepared myself, but I didn't prepare myself for the way it happened.
Gabbard learning Nielsen's photo had been on the shady ad site Backpage.com, then Nielsen seen walking the streets of southwest Detroit. Gabbard says he and even his fiance have driven around looking for Nielsen and then finding her walking the streets, trying to get her help, but all of their attempts failing.
Wish I could have went out there every day. Tell her to get in the car. Come on, we'll get you out.
Gabbard says this photo shows Nielsen with a man named Michael Randall. Randall faces federal drug charges, arrested during the massive prostitution raid of Victory Inn. Gabbard says Nielsen was there.
She's one of the females that got taken to the hospital that was sick.
As police continue to investigate, Gabbard struggling to explain where Nielsen is to little Mariah and Nevaeh.
That's the worst part of it all. Looking at them girls.
Gabbard telling Mariah that her mother is now an angel.
She looked at me, she's like, "Those angels watch over you, or look out the sky at you while you're sleeping." And I said, "Yeah, it's the mommy's looking out the sky as you're sleeping."
And as he vows to find who took this young mother from her children, Gabbard also wishing he could have done more.
Drugs got the best of her. I think it did. And it's bad out there. It's bad out there.
In southwest Detroit, Erica Erickson, Fox 2 News.
Developing tonight, a warning. 2 sisters wanted for kidnapping, torture, and murder in the Detroit area, maybe in Indianapolis area. Take a good look at these women. Simone Monique Runnels and Chevelle Monique Runnels are accused of forcing Angela Nielsen into the trunk of a car on January 29th in the Detroit area, and then setting the car on fire with Nielsen still inside. Police say the sisters may have fled to Indy because they have relatives here.
Gerald, I spoke with Hong James' daughter, Jade, just after the Durham Police Department announced that they'd arrested 28-year-old Maurice Wiley Jr. She says this is bittersweet news for her entire family. She had this to say. She says, quote, "I am happy that they arrested him. Arresting him does something, but it doesn't bring back my dad's life and his presence." Now, Durham police, as you mentioned, held that press conference this afternoon to announce they'd captured and arrested Wiley this morning. He's charged with first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder in the shooting death of Hong Zhang as he and his wife returned home after closing their restaurant. There was a swift response from the community to catch the person responsible for this murder and the owner of a well-liked business.
Here's a crazy story we won't hear mentioned in the Lynching Museum. This dude just got off. He was on trial for killing a white woman. Had a lot of witness intimidation, a lot of people forgetting things. A weird jury. The jury was hung, got tried twice, so they had to kick him loose. He's not even out of jail 6 months before he kills another white girl. That just happened a few days ago. Maybe that'll be in a museum someday. How about this dude? This dude just went and killed a couple of tourists in Florida. He's been appealing, and it was English tourists. It's funny. It's not funny. Somebody from England just sent me to this because this is still a big deal in England. Get those museum statues up. This happened just a couple of weeks ago across the river from good old Colin. Somebody wanted to do a deal for some kind of PlayStation. He was robbed, shot, and killed. Just a kid. One of the fellas did it. But yet we go to the Lynching Museum, and they're very explicit about the Lynching Museum. The Lynching Museum is not about lynching. The Lynching Museum is not about something that happened 100 years ago, 110 years ago. The Lynching Museum is about what is happening today. It's all about today. It's all about how black people today are relentless victims of relentless white racism today. Just the same as it was 100 years ago, the same as it was 200 years ago. If you look at their website, that's all they're about. It's like, oh yeah, we were lynched. That means there's too many black people in prison today for no reason whatsoever. If you look at the websites of the people who work there, the crowd, people at the exhibits, all well-meaning white ladies or guys with sandals on, looking gaga-eyed at all this black oppression being committed by all these bad white people. When I think of this new group, it's called the Equal Justice Initiative. Really kind of has notes of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Southern Poverty Law Center has been around for a while. They're sitting on about $477 million in cash. No black people work there. So the Equal Justice, and they do a lot of direct mail to get their cash. The Equal Justice Initiative is a little different. They have major sponsors. They'll have sponsors who are rock stars. They do these big concerts. The Google gives them a bunch of money, and so they're sitting on about $23 million in cash, even after the museum is built, even after this is up, that's up. I looked at their financials. So they've got something going on there, and you can see the pictures of some of the people who work there. Lots and lots of white people. I don't know why they couldn't find more black people to work there. But that's the story. So these guys are pretty well known now. They're turning into a big fundraising mill for black victimization. Seems like as long as that's your cause, you're always going to find some guilty white, Asian, young, old, gay, straight people to kick some money in. Because not kicking the money in, because asking this museum to acknowledge that black criminality, crime, violence, and murder is wildly out of proportion, and it's been that way for as long as anybody's been keeping numbers. Asking anybody to remember that in the face of this ridiculous new museum in Montgomery, Alabama. Well, try it. Ask them sometime. I guarantee you that will make the black kids angry.